it would be a good time for us to kind of talk about, birds and what are they? A lot of guys out there, they may have never even pulled one before, or aren't familiar with what it's used for, or understand the differences and like kind of what it's actually meant to be doing. Because obviously it's not something that has a hook in it. And so, sometimes people don't understand really, well, why is this in the water without a hook? Like, how does this work? And so, yeah, I'd love for you to kind of elaborate more and explain to us, the theory on the bird and what you guys have learned about it, what you think they help with, and the different scenarios. And like what we had spoke earlier, you were saying, there's a lot of different ways to use them other than just pulling one way out the stinger just for that. There's other ways to do it. So yeah, let's dive into that. I think people will really love to kind of just, hear it and learn a bit more about them, especially with your product too, because your bird is it's definitely different than other stuff on the market. So
the bird teaser, and there's a ton on the market, right? I mean, you name a whole bunch of different ones. The general concept is for attractiveness. I think in general, that's what people, so their mind goes directly to enhancing their lure spread. And I think that was mine initially, but going through the hours of R&D with this bird behind my own boat is when I would put it on the stinger, it would actually allow me to immediately see where that lure is, because I quite often run, a small bullet or, a below the surface running lure on my a long shotgun or stinger, or, the furthest long back rod. So I think that is a really key point to some people that may not be as familiar with birds, is that the Hawaiian Malolo is designed to be trolled without a hook, like an integral hook into the actual bird, and that the snap swivel on the rear end of it is to attach your favorite lure or whatever lure you want, and then that lure has the hook in it. So that's the hooking portion of the combo. So also the feedback we get, it varies, man. It's like, how long's a piece of string, honestly, Chris? We have people that swear by less than 6 feet, or say 2 meters of leader between the back of the bird and their lure. I personally like to run about, I'd say about 4 meters, say about 10 to 12 feet.
Okay. For
some reason, I don't know, I don't really have like a hard and fast number there, but I tend to like it. I would personally go a little bit longer than a little bit shorter. Now, my theory on this is that if the fish comes and is interested in the bird, it's often, especially people learning with trolling, they think of things kind of static. You're standing in a fishing shop and you're holding a bird and you're holding a lure and you're thinking, oh, okay, cool, it's going, we're going to put it on there and send it out. But you got to think of a fish. You're under the water looking up first, right? So silhouettes on the surface, you've got your boat wake, you've got white bubbles, and you've got this, you can say you're trolling at 8 knots, 8.5 knots, whatever it might be. Now at that speed, you've got this bird going across. And if you look at that point in time, that lure is going to be where that bird is real quick. Within a couple seconds, right? Yeah. So I tend to have the leader a little bit longer to provide that attractiveness, but to give that fish the space to go and think, oh, the lure is the man falling behind, or the bait fish falling behind, and that's the low-hanging fruit. So I'm going to go eat the lure. The top charter operations here out of Oahu, that fishes in the wind. It's quite windy around Oahu.
Oh yeah.
Outside on the windward side and south side, he said, this is pretty amazing, that they will run the bird in like a 3-inch feather behind it, or up to a 5-inch feather. And he says it allows him to run these really small lures on windy days when they're fishing, like you were saying, more for like meat fish, my skipjack, maybe some sheebies, the small yellowfins, that kind of stuff. When previous to us supplying them with Hawaiian Malolo birds, their lines would get really pushed outside the wake, or they get a lot of tangles and that kind of thing. And they put the birds out and they were just hanging in place. And he could run 3 of these smaller lures And because he's charter fishing, it was all about just having that reel go, right? Putting people into the chair and just catching fish. Another part of a bird, which I've taken really serious, Chris, is the rigging. This has been a really big deal for me, even back in the day, the 80s and 90s, when I was using them in New Zealand, but especially now that this is my product. I really don't want any failures. I don't want someone to come back to me and say, God, I lost the fish of a lifetime because, you know, something failed. And I believe we have some of the power there to provide the best possible componentry that we can, right? I'm not going to skimp on anything when it comes to providing this product for those anglers. So I guess after figuring out, you know, the core materials for this bird shape, and that wing, so that they're just running constantly on the surface. They don't, you know, they won't dive under the water, which is also really super important because, you know, people have been concerned that they would go into the water and they would break the rubber bands on the outriggers or pop their riggers, and also in rough conditions. And it just, you know, there's an elongated tail on there, and they just run upright. Fantastic. So it's just taking it sort of an old concept and just building in these new materials into this. And then it got us into the super exciting part of colors, right? And you get enamored with all this color. But I think there is a lot to it. Not only is it good on our human eyes, but being able to match these birds to lures that people have faith and trust in, and enhancing their lure that they already have to potentially catching some more fish.